Hello everyone and welcome to my little corner of the internet. My name's Michael and I'm bitten by a radioactive book. Today I'm here to bring you the third part of my 5-part guide to steampunk, and we're focusing on the theme of gender equality. As with last week, I'm going to do this in like 3 parts. First I give a brief little historical context of the theme in steampunk. Then I'm going to relate that to the modern reader of 2014, and in the end there will be recommendations for you where I think you can find the theme of gender equality established in steampunk literature. Careful. So let's get started. If you saw last week's episode, you already know that I talked about how people came to the cities and the possibility of educating yourself either by reading, because things like the printing press were invented, or listening to speakers who had a large audience, led to some kind of enlightenment in the masses. Um, And of course, that kind of enlightenment also happened for women and gender issues at the time, and women started to demand their rights in society. A good example of this is the suffragette movement that worked for women to be able to vote at the time. And of course, um, you can say and see through history that feminism and fighting for gender equality has always happened, but the mechanic that you now had with being able to reach so many people in the Victorian era led to the point where the information reached a critical mass, and a critical mass that was able to achieve maybe more than what was possible in the past. One symbol of the female oppression we had at the time is the corset. The corset actually ties in the woman in the metaphor kind in social norms and rules, and tie her up until the point she's not able to breathe anymore, and that is the basic human need, breathing. But also the corset shows you the role that society had for the women, because when you look at what the corset does, the corset tightens the waist and therefore gives we wish, emphasis on the hips of the woman, and the hips are considered with childbearing, because huge hips, you're a good childbearer. Go there, yeah, go childbearing. And so the corset supports the idea of the woman as a childbearer. And then what the second thing the corset does is it pushes up the breasts to put them on display and show to the man that after the woman gave birth to your child, she's also good for nursing the child, so the child will be a survivor. So actually, not only is the corset a metaphor of the female oppression, but also a sign of what society actually meant women to have for a purpose in life. And therefore we will see that some of the steampunk literature borders on paranormal romance, or sometimes they mix up. But if you read a woman, a female character, taking off her corset and having sexual relations out of her own free will, you have to see that is not only like an element of a romance novel, but it's also a statement. It's a statement of empowerment, and it's a statement of free will, and not being the prisoner of the corset society wants the character to have. So even if you're not a fan maybe of that romance aspect that is in some of those steampunk novels I'm going to mention later on, you have to keep in mind that the romance element for the good writers always has this purpose of female empowerment as well, and I think it's a very important statement. I think I don't have to tell you too many things about how that relates to the modern reader. Of course, we have still a lot of issues with gender equality in our modern society. We still don't have equal payment, especially in jobs with high salaries. We still have a problem with accepting women in positions of power and influence, and we still have like job fields that we're associating with female or male employees. For example, if I say nurse, you think woman. If I say car mechanic, you think man. If I say social worker, you think woman. If I say engineer, you think man. And it's not that that women don't want to go into these jobs, but there are actually some subtle and some very unsubtle ways to keep them away from getting this kind of jobs, to throw something in their career path, even when taking up an education about it, to try to be a female engineer student today. It's not pleasant. It isn't. So so actually what steampunk can show us is that we had some achievements, of course, in gender equality over the last 1.5 centuries, but we're not there yet. And steampunk can remind us, on the one hand, of what we achieved, but also can show us what is still wrong. So I think the theme of gender equality is a very modern theme, and by writing good female characters that that face those issues and defeat them and become stronger by defeating them, I think is a great way that steampunk is able to, yeah, maybe help that kind of female empowerment in our society as well. Therefore, I think it's maybe the most important theme that we have in steampunk these days. Now let's head into the recommendations. First off, I'd like to recommend the Parasol Protectorate series by Gail Carriger, starting with Soulless. Soulless shows the main character of Alexia Tarabotti, and she is on the one hand a upper society lady, and she's kind of a black sheep in her family because she dares not to be married at an age of, I don't know, 24 or something. I'm not quite sure how old she is, but yeah, she's not married. Scandal. And on the other hand, she's a fighter of supernatural creatures, a vampire slayer, for example. And this is a book that is very good in showing that on the one hand, the aspect of the female empowerment, that she is the boss of her own, and she isn't like bossed around by her family, but on the other hand, by the pressure the family and other figures and characters are having, or not having, the pressure they're putting on Alexia to get married and to behave more like a proper lady, you see also the oppression that goes on there, and therefore I think the Parasol Protectorate is a great series to get started when you want to look into that theme. On top of that, the prose is very good. The dialogue is fantastic. It has a really good ring, and the whole speech patterns are very much taken out of the Victorian era. I can't say that right, can't I? Victorian era. And yeah, that's a very good way to start off. The second book I'd like to recommend is I think it's very similar to the first one. It's The Falconer by Elizabeth May. We're following Elena Cameron. She's also a fighter of supernatural creatures, and this time the story plays in Edinburgh, and she mostly goes up against fairies. But we have the same kind of thing, that she's a debutante in the in her day life, and has to deal with the themes of female oppression, but is also a strong female character and fighter, like in her nightlife, where she fights the fairies. The prose and the language is not as good as in Soulless, but for the theme of gender equality, it's a very recommended read. As we have now seen examples of two young ladies, female oppression is not a theme, of course, that is only tied to the upper class. We see it in lower class people as well. And one great example that shows that kind of, not so much the oppression, but more the female empowerment, is Bone Shaker by Cherry Priest. And Bone Shaker follows, and now I have to look up the name, I just looked at it, sorry for that. Briar. We're following Briar Wilkes, and she is a working class woman, a blue collar woman. She works in a factory in the US next to Seattle, and Seattle had actually an accident, and gas came out and transformed people in Seattle to zombies, and therefore a huge wall had to be built around Seattle, and yeah, nobody should go in there. But her son, she's a mother, so she's not like a young woman, she's a mature woman. That's great for a change to read. And her son wants to find out something about his father, and therefore he goes into Seattle, and Briar actually starts her own rescue mission for him, where she goes into Seattle to get back her son there and fight some zombies and other things I'm not going to spoil for you. And yeah, this is actually a book about female empowerment, with a great character who's mature, and that's a delight to read. The next book I'm going to recommend is Camera Obscura. Camera Obscura is the second installment in Lavi Teta's Bookman Chronicles. It can be read as a standalone, because in the series always the main protagonist changes, and an event is told that is concluded within each installment. You have like a slight arc that that bounds the trilogy together. But if you might want only to read that one, you can. But I would recommend the whole series, because it's a great series. But if you're just looking for a book about gender equality and female empowerment, I would recommend going for the second one, Camera Obscura. It's my personal favorite of the series, and the main protagonist is Milady de Winter. Milady de Winter is a female and a person of color. She works for the Quiet Council of France, which is a kind of ruling body made up of automatons mostly, and I think a few humans. I can't remember that anymore. But yeah, she has to go on a search for some kind of mysterious device, and it's very action-packed, and the great thing about Milady de Winter is she is really a person who is in charge. She is the expert in something that might be yeah, more related to male characters. She's an expert fighter, she's an expert investigator, and she's a great character for female empowerment. And I would highly recommend to read Camera Obscura. And last but not least, I'd like to recommend a YA novel. It's called World Shaker by, and I have to look that up again because my brain is not really great today. Richard Holland. Richard Holland is the author. Sorry about that. I should have been prepared. It's a YA novel, and it mainly focuses on the male protagonist. It's exclusively told from his perspective. He's kind of the heir of the ship World Shaker, and when I say ship, it's kind of a land ship that is like huge, and the society seemingly lives only in this ship. And in the upper decks live like the upper class, or maybe the upper class and some normal people, and below decks live the filthies. And the filthies are not allowed to go on the upper decks, and the filthies are the ones that have to do all the labor, shoveling coal, and yeah, making sure that the engines for this huge land ships are running. And the male protagonist meets up Riff, and Riff is one of the filthies that was able to go up on the ship, and Riff kind of changes his life, his perspective, and Riff then turns out to be a leader in the filthy community, and she wants to set on a path of revolution and bring down the oppression of the ruling class. And so that also ties into the social upheaval theme we saw last week. But Riff is actually kind of a leader, and although she's not like the main protagonist, I think the book is still a good example for the theme of gender equality, because Riff is a very strong character in my opinion, and she's a way better character than actually the main protagonist, whose name I also forgot, and that's why I always call him the main protagonist. But Riff is still lively in my mind, so you see. And of course, I know that the booktube community is or has a majority of readers that are actually preferring YA at the moment, so that might be also a book that speaks to readers of YA, because it has some of the typical young adult themes as well. So if you're into that, that might be a book you want to start with to explore the theme of gender equality. So that's it for today. I hope that was a bit of that was helpful for you to get started with this theme of gender equality inside the steampunk genre. If you liked the video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more of me or my guides, hit the subscribe button as well. Next week we're going to talk about the theme of imperialism in steampunk, and until then I hope you get bitten by a really good book too. Bye!